How's it going, guys? It is June 19th, 2022, and for me, the 19th is sort of a special day every month because that is the day I am forced to update my game engine, which was formerly Ancient Archer, a project I started in college when I was kind of making my first game for a class. And it has somewhat evolved into something bigger when it's more recently been renamed into just Archer Engine, a little more simple of a name, and get rid of the Ancient because, well, I feel like the Ancient was its original I don't know what the heck I'm doing state. Not that I know what the heck I'm doing now, but you gotta move forward. So I just gonna talk about it, and I want to talk a little bit about just game development in general for people who don't want to use a game engine but would rather prefer to roll their own. So I feel like we're like this niche group, and I talk to a lot of you guys. Some of you are in the Discord or leave comments, and I watch a lot of other people's videos that are doing the same thing. And there's a gazillion projects online on GitHub and stuff for other people doing the same thing. So it's interesting, but well, I'll get to that more later. But first, let's talk about the changes. There really wasn't a whole lot. I was trying to get in some major PBR changes, but it's complicated. So those didn't really get fully integrated, but I do have a messy branch that I never committed, full of just some various PBR stuff that I ultimately scrapped because it was becoming chaos and it wasn't working correctly. But anyway, so let's talk about what changed for this 1.4 update. Let's see here. Pull requests closed. Yeah, I just closed one. Okay, so I'll just go over this real quick because this includes everything right here. This merge 33. So typically, I'll talk quickly about how I do these branches. The main gets updated specifically on the 19th when it's time to do the final merge. Before that, all the changes that are happening for the month go into dev, but before they go into dev, a branch is made off of dev, and you do whatever, and then when that's kind of ready, you merge it into dev. So that should allow multiple people to work on it. But that's one of the things I want to talk about, is just kind of an open invitation to work on this, because I do have some goals and there's just no way I'm going to meet them on my own anytime soon. So definitely need some help from the public at some point, if they're willing to. You can't force anybody. Anyway, let's talk about the changes. The main thing here, the biggest change, let's see, I did some minor stuff, renamed a few things, updated the main Uber shader, which is kind of the default shader if you don't do anything special. It just gives you that shader. I added some basic materials. So previously, the only way you could get materials is if your model file, if it had like PNG textures or some kind of textures that went with it. So now also, if it has material files that are, or material specifications that aren't textures at all, but rather just a diffuse, ambient, specular emission, if it just has some of those, it will just automatically use those. So if those are specified in your model or in your meshes on your model file, it's going to pick those up and just kind of automatically display them. So I tried to get that working properly, and it seems okay. We'll give it a run later, and I'll show you some of the differences. It's kind of hard to see in some of the cases, but basically it just takes these all into account now, and it does definitely look a lot better. And in some cases where things would just be just like, well, I had it going to a red color if it wasn't picking up any textures, just as like a debug color. So a lot of those reds are now fixed in a lot of model files and should display the actual material that's specified. So now, yeah, your models can have, of course, the normal textured stuff, but also now they can have material specifications. So a lot more stuff is supported. Still not, it still doesn't support a lot of stuff though. So still not as good as the big game engines, of course, but we're getting there. Small incremental stuff. That was really the big changes. I also wanted to start adding in some controller support, which I looked at and started kind of hashing out a little bit, but didn't actually get to adding any of that stuff. So the controller support didn't make it. Really only the material support made it, and tweaking to some shadows and stuff. So yeah, I spent most of the time messing with PBR, and that didn't make it in, and that's just the way it goes. So I'm going to go ahead and check out main here on GitHub using fork, do a pull. Oh, apparently I have changes I need to stash. Oh, okay. I guess another thing, I have a little game file thing I started messing with. I guess I need to stash all that first. Alright, we'll do that. So I'll stash all that. Stash and Git is just some local changes that you're putting to the side, basically. So I'm just going to call this ET, because that is the working name of the game I'm making. Alright, and then I'm going to do a pull to get the latest stuff that I just merged in from the website. And then I'm going to open up the project here in Visual Studio 2022, because that's the build system we're using. Ideally, I'd like to go to CMake eventually, but for now we're going to stick with Visual Studio. Alright, so you can see over here at the top left I have download test resources, editor, engine, and unit test. I took the AA off the front of all these project names just because it was redundant at this point. It used to stand for Ancient Archer, but since the project is no longer named that, now it's just editor, engine, and engine basically. The download test resources are just some model files and sound files required to run the unit tests, and that's really all they are. So you run that first, it's going to download everything. You do have to unzip them and put them in the folder, but I believe all the directions are in there. This has actually been there, but yeah, there it is. It says it right at the top of the CPP. Yeah, just running this will do all the connection and download the zip file. Yeah, that's just a little basic thing. Uses curl. Alright, the editor still doesn't do a whole lot. It just gives you a little flying camera basically, and it has drag and drop supported, so you can drag in models. You can't do anything else, but it does give you at least the defaults for loading models. So you can kind of test out models if you run the editor, is the basic point, and then fly around and look at them. But you can't really do a whole lot else right now. The editor's, it's not actually functional, but it's a work in progress and it's something I'll tweak later. I don't know if I'm actually going to make it fully fledged, because this is sort of meant to be, you're sort of meant to work on things in a different way with this particular engine. But for now, basically, you just use the engine as a library, and you just use that library to load up all your media stuff and do stuff with your loop. It's a lot like Raylib, if you've ever used Raylib. And there's some other similar libraries like that. I'm just trying to keep it super simple, so including the engine gets you like the audio, 3D stuff, some basic shaders, and you know, some basic mouse and keyboard support and some windowing option support. So it just handles kind of a lot of stuff all in one. So yeah, let's give the unit tests a run, because this is where I basically always run these anytime there's some major changes and make sure it doesn't break anything I previously had going, because the unit test essentially just uses the interface, which is the public part of the engine. You can see this include here. This is all the public parts, so if you're using the library, these are the headers you can mess with to do stuff. So these are kind of constantly changing, and I'm often making more stuff public as we go, but essentially you just interface with this interface.h, and it has all the main public functions to do all the stuff with the program that you might want to do. That's why these are all worked up with comments and stuff. Alright, let's run the unit tests. So I'm going to go up here to tests, test explorer, and then just hit run all tests as soon as it gives me the option. And I've got 12 current unit tests. Some of them are cooler looking than others, but we're going to wait a minute because this is going to update any of the libraries required using vcpkg as the package manager. I guess I'll talk briefly about this. I sort of have mixed feelings about vcpkg. It works great. It's very nice in that I don't have to really worry about stuff, so that's nice, because just, you know, I'm doing it locally for this project. So vcpkg, you can kind of install libraries globally if you want, kind of like how Linux is when you use apt-get install for libraries and they just work. You can do that, or you can have a manifest file which downloads your libraries locally for your project, and that's nice for shipping your project, because you can ship the required libraries with it. You can do so the global way too, but I think it's a little more complicated. So I just chose to make them local, and it just keeps them updated. And apparently there's been some recent updates, so it's updating the libraries here. It doesn't always do this, but it also automatically updates for debug or release or whatever you have it set to, so that's super nice. I have a whole video on both of those, on the global way of doing it with vcpkg and the local way of doing it with a manifest. So check those out if you're not really sure how to do it. I don't want to do it again or make the tutorial yet again, but I'll just say basically you need this JSON, vcpkg JSON. You can check it out on GitHub if you're curious about how it's supposed to look. I think it's very basic. And then on any of your projects that use it, you got to go to the properties, and under this vcpkg you got to change the manifest to yes, and that'll use it. It defaults to no, so it only actually works if you make the file and then turn it on. And it does it for, well, you have the vcpkg JSON at your top level of your project, and you see all the individual projects have their own toggle, but they use the top level one. So that's about it. So this thing is still building. It's taking a while, and I'm just kind of using these videos as a little bit of an opportunity to also vlog about updates to my life a bit at this point, because this isn't really like a normal channel topic. You know, normally I'm trying to do like series of tutorials, and this is kind of just an off thing where it's my personal project. I'm making a game engine to support a game I'd like to make. But in other news, I know I've been saying it for like a month, and I'm moving, and yeah, it's the reality now. I'm on the last week, and I will no longer be at this location after about another week, so you'll never see this background again. And I've been at the new house fixing things up, doing a lot of mowing, doing a lot of trimming of the yard, and I keep getting all this poison ivy and stuff, so that's why I got getting all these weird bumps on me. It's just a lot of poison ivy, I think, irritation from that. But yeah, so I've been outside a lot and been moving stuff a lot, and it's been very nice. It's been refreshing. I don't normally get outside this much. And also, that's one of the things that kind of slowed down the development recently too, is just me preparing for the move. I've just been boxing up things in the house, shifting around the large furniture, trying to get the bulk of everything done before the deadline of me having to be out of here, and that way I have time to clean too. Alright, you know, the big thing I wanted to talk about is people rolling their own game engine, and why we do it, I guess. And, you know, I've seen this is a touchy subject in a way, because it's almost painful to think about for me. I've seen a lot of people do this and then give up quite quickly, which is fair. It's a massive undertaking, and it, you know, takes a lot of stick-to-itness and a lot of humility to do this, because you basically have to accept that you're never going to be as good as any other engine out there. It's the reality of it. If you go look at any of the more popular roll your own game engines on GitHub, for example, they're all better than Archer engine. They all support more stuff, they all sound cooler, they all have prettier demos, you know, that sort of thing. So looking at those, you know, it's sort of an inspiration as to, okay, this is what I need to go towards, and this is what I can do. But it's also like, holy crap, man, it's going to take so much work to catch up to this guy, and that sort of thing. So in a lot of ways, it's painful, and you just kind of have to, you know, maybe that's why most people quit, is they think, oh, I can just use one that's already better. And based on that, you got to have some other reason to keep going, I think. So I'm curious what other people think about all this, but I guess for me, it's just a learning experience at this point, and just a source of, I want to know how to do this stuff. It's both of those, really, at this point. It's like when I dive in to add a new feature, sure, I could just go get someone else's library and just do it, but what I find is often just figuring out their antics in their library literally takes me as much time as just building it myself would take. So that's often why I just go back to my engine. Like, I'll start doing stuff in Unreal, or I'll start working towards something I want to build, and I just get stuck on all these like things that I feel like should be easy, but they're not. And it's like, you already support it, why can't I just use what you got? But their stuff doesn't seem to work as I would expect. And so it's I don't know, I almost want to say it's easier for me to build it myself, because then I understand all the code and how it's working and what's going on, rather than trying to use somebody's tool and just like, if it works, great, but I don't understand it. You know, there's something there where I just want to know. I'm just that sort of person. I guess that's why I have this channel. It's because I'm the sort of person who just dives in and gives it their best shot, even if they don't really know how to do it to perfection. And I think that's like a really important thing that you have to have if you're gonna roll your own game engine or build anything, really, because unless you're like the best programmer in the world, which let's face it, nobody is that. There might be one best programmer in the world who can build whatever they want at will, coding it all up from scratch. But even them, it's gonna take years probably. So don't be too hard on yourself when you get stuck on things. This is really hard and complicated stuff with so many layers that you have to understand to get there. And yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. I'm just kind of going on a rant now, but I'm curious what other people think of that. So I guess from there, I kind of want to give an open invitation to work on this. If you want to work on it, if you want to add a feature, add a feature. If you want to ask me questions about how it works and where you should put things, you can ask me. I kind of change things frequently with this engine and move things around, but it's pretty straightforward for an open source project. In the engine, there's an include in the source. All the source stuff is generally private, and the interface is what generally accesses and changes it. So you can see in the basic unit tests how to set up the basic projects, or in the editor how to generally run. Basically, you just instantiate the engine, call the init, and call run. Doesn't seem super complicated to me, but I've done it a million times, and I also kind of designed it, so it probably seems a lot more simple to me because of that. And that brings me to, kind of what I want to accomplish for the next month. And basically, this next month is what I'm going to call Chaos Month. So version 1.5, which will come out in a month from this video's release, is going to be my Chaos Month. I don't really have any plans. Basically, what I'm going to do is try to make some ground on initializing the project that I want to make, and just kind of see how far I can get before things don't work for me anymore, and that should give me an idea of what to add. But also, I want to be very open to public changes during this time. So if people want to add stuff and it doesn't break my current thing, I'm just going to add it and say okay, and kind of go from there. And I'm probably just going to add stuff kind of at will for whatever I feel like I should add. So it's going to be, I feel like it's going to be an interesting month, and I'm curious to see what changes will come about in this next month. And if you are too, then I don't know, maybe hit subscribe and the bell and all that stuff so you can not miss it. So I also might stream this, so you're welcome to go to my stream and follow there to see when I go live. I'm usually playing League of Legends or some game, but occasionally I'm going to program, and I might program some of this just total chaos just for the fun of it, and see if we can have a laugh at things breaking. Twitch.tv/MattEarly. Possibly might change my name again over there to something, probably. I'm always going back and forth changing my name. I guess to briefly talk on that, I don't know, I'm just not settled on a public name. Like, sometimes I'm okay with using my public name, but sometimes I'm like, well, I don't necessarily want my real name associated, because I kind of want to be a little crazy and do some weird stuff, and I don't necessarily want that tied to my name. I'd rather just be some rando on the internet when I'm doing weird stuff, So that's why I go back and forth with changing my name. But ultimately, I don't care. I'm kind of learning to accept myself and not be too hurt by others' opinions, for lack of a better way of explaining it. So, self-acceptance is huge. Here we go. Here's the 1.4 current run state with the unit tests. Default init. I'll talk briefly on what these actually do too. You can always click on these and click on the code. Just go right to the code of where the test is, which is super cool, so you can see what it looks like. All right. Default init basically just makes sure it initializes and runs. A little I am GUI interface here. Fireplace room. This is a room that uses materials that aren't all textures. This is still a little buggy, but this is essentially something that should all load correctly one day. But it's getting better. It looks a lot better than it did in last update. You can see, for some reason, these aren't stretched to the edge properly on the textures on the floor. Not sure why, but they're supposed to be. I think I need to load some sort of UV thing different. There's apparently different UV options, and I don't have them all supported properly, so that's another thing I gotta figure out. But you can see this is no longer just a flat red. This is like a little gray material. The walls have a darker material, so the materials are generally kind of working, but they're not perfect. And I think there's just there's a point light in here somewhere. I don't know where it's at, but it's kind of hard to move around. If you can get it somewhere in the room, you could see that it will light it up. Oh, there's a flashlight too, apparently. I forgot about that. There should be a sun too. Yeah, okay, it's hidden behind here. Yeah, there's a sunlight too, so you can adjust that too and kind of see the differences it makes in the scene. So this room, it's mainly to test those new non-picture texture, I'm calling them materials. They're just like material stuff. So it kind of works, still needs improvement, doesn't work perfectly. Like if you load this same scene in Unreal or Unity, it looks a lot nicer than it does here. But it's getting better. Alright, so that's all that this test really is just testing that kind of stuff. Some lighting tests. This is, I'm going to make this full screen. This is just a test where I have some models loaded up and have the ability to kind of walk around. But mainly we're just testing the lighting and the shadows here. So yeah, there's a bunch of different lights and just kind of make sure everything looks semi-correct. This guy in particular has materials and has textures that are pictures, so he's got a kind of a combination of both, and the rest of these I think are just all textures. This floor has some material specifications too, and that was something that was hard to get working right, but in general I just mainly use this to play around with the shadows. Oh yeah, I still haven't fixed the adding the transforms before the shadow, so that's just something I actually just kind of forgot about as I got working. But alright, this one here actually just tests that the models were used properly, like these are using the same graphics card models. Basically it makes sure it doesn't load the same model twice, but rather just reuses stuff that's already loaded. So actually this just auto fails if that doesn't happen. So since it's not crashing, it's working fine. Let's go to the next test. So that'll crash if you ever mess up the reuse model resources. This is just an animated model test. I actually need to improve this to add some more animations and let you change them. But basically it just makes sure that this guy actually animates. Let's see, what's this? The skybox test. Just basically tests switching to different skyboxes. Doesn't let you move the camera. Camera automatically moves in a little circular swivel fashion. Basically you can swap skyboxes out at will. That way if you're making a game or something, you can change your background or whatever, however you want. The sound effect test, loud warning here. These just basically load up a few OGs and waves and just make sure they actually work. I'm going to click a few of them. I guess I'll turn the volume down first on this recording because these are blaringly loud usually. Here we go. Coin, flashlight, gunshot, alert sound. But yeah, these all seem to work, and you can click them real fast if you want. That way you can, I don't know. There we go. Yep, they work fine. Little space scene mashup. I just did a bunch of different things here and just kind of made sure a combination of things worked. This is a weird scene because, you know, I got outlines working or stenciling, which is great for selecting stuff and whatnot and making sure you can see things from far away or know where they are in the world and stuff like that. They seem okay, but I don't know how actually useful they are. That's really all this is, just a mashup of different stuff. This one tests some stenciling. You can see these guys are stenciled with gray. One of these cubes is stenciled. These other ones are not. So when you're behind something that's not stenciled, you can see right through it. That way you can find your stuff. And if I go below the world, well, I guess it's not a great test. But yeah, just some stenciling test, looks fine. Sunlight, shadows, okay, I guess this was just some sun shadow stuff. I wanted to test it with things moving, like that cube moves, and you can see its shadow down there. It should move. Probably have to adjust these bias stuff. These always need to change based on how your scene is, so I think I need to, yeah, decrease it to get that one to look good. The ortho size, anyway. This plane, usually want it high. But you can kind of play around with stuff here and make sure it works. Seems okay. Windows options. Oh, this is just testing. You can kind of like have min and max sizes you can set. So this is just kind of testing that. Seems to work fine. And also the full screen feature where you have, you know, no top bar and stuff. That should toggle. Yep, seems to be okay. Starting size. This is a new test. Basically, I noticed there were some odd bugs where if you put in a custom starting size, it wouldn't always work. So I just made a test to sort that out. So this uses a custom starting size, and it seems to be fine here, so I'm just going to hit yes. And that's basically all the tests so far. Definitely need some more tests. Some of the stuff I mentioned there that was mentioned, like the animations need switching, and I need more. The animations are still the same as they were a while ago. I just basically got them working and then walked away because there was just a lot of stuff I didn't quite understand. So that's just another thing, is the animations need improved. But don't worry, during Chaos Month, we're going to be stress testing the animations and probably making some changes to the code there, because there's definitely some bugs in it that will come up, and there's something about the way the animations loop. I don't think I have it interpolating the end of the loop to the beginning of the loop properly, because there's kind of this snap glitch at the end of every animation. Little stuff like that needs improved, basically. But there's probably also more, because there isn't exactly good support for understanding what skeletons should go with what models and stuff, so you can get some odd things happening if you haven't fully tested your skeletons beforehand. Alright, what else to talk about? That's the main stuff. I think I've talked about basically everything that I can think of, so I'm gonna end this vlog here, I think. So if you're still here, thanks for watching, I appreciate you guys. If you want to support the project, you can just give it a star on GitHub or something. I'll leave a link down below. Of course, you're welcome to support me if you want. I have a Patreon, and there's all kinds of buttons everywhere here on YouTube. You know, the like, the sub. There's also a join button if you want to get special cool stuff next to your name. And when I eventually do my 10K live stream, you can do it there and stuff too. But until then, I'm just going to stream some on Twitch. Yeah, I can't think of anything else to say. Just appreciate you guys. I'm going to roll the patron thing for helping keep this channel going. I really appreciate you guys in the financial support. It does mean a lot. And, you know, all the support does. Just comments in general do too. All right, I'm out. Peace, guys.